In this video, I show you a Kickstarter preview of Bleak Elf Bastion. But before we get into today's video, just want to share with you what the GGGGs are for this month. Each month, Bob the Beholder picks some of my Patreon supporters to receive gratitude gifts. And for this month of May of 2023, we have this $50 credit towards Terrainify. They provide STL files. They can give you 3D prints, or they can give you 3D printed terrain that is painted and flocked. We have two $25 credits going towards LV427. They create sci-fi terrain that's really unique. Go ahead and see this video if you want to see more details about that. Also, they've provided a discount code for all of my viewers on your first order. We have this printed and painted tower from the Tradefell Kickstarter. Also, two pledges for that Kickstarter that's going on right now. We have the pre-painted Tenaris Madness box going to one of my Patreon supporters. And then separately, we have the pre-painted Tenaris Dragons box. And then finally, we have $100 going towards a crowdfunder campaign, which my Patreon supporters are currently voting upon. Go ahead and use the link below to go to my Patreon page to find out more information. And it only takes $1 for you to have a chance to be chosen by Bob the Beholder to be receiving one of these gratitude gifts. So Joshua did reach out to me and did provide me with a preview STL file that is part of his upcoming Kickstarter campaign that will be launching towards the end of this month of May. I think it's going to possibly be on the 30th, but we will wait and see. Go ahead and use the link to go to the Kickstarter page and also sign up to be notified once it launches. Also stick around. At the end of this video, I do have a painting tutorial of how I put colors on this. Really easy to paint up. But he is providing these files that are what I would consider to be dark elves or in the Underdark. And I just have a couple of dark elf miniatures down here just so that you can see the scale of some of these files. And I haven't really seen other buildings that you could use for the Underdark, and I think this set is really perfect for that theme if you are interested in that. And this is just a small altar that's dedicated towards that set. He has a bunch of buildings that he has planned and also he has printed out. And so we are going to go to the Kickstarter pre-page. I'm going to walk you through that. And he has printed out and painted his set. So you're going to be able to see a lot of the details. And like it should for Dark Elves, there's a bunch of pokey, spiky things that is all over the buildings and the terrain, which fits the theme really well. Now, these are meant to be printed without supports, but I did find that some of the pieces were really thin and failed to adhere to my bed. So, for example, this base had really, really small pinpoints where it failed to print down here at the bottom. You're not going to really notice a lot because it still looks like a blade and the failure wasn't that big. But there are some spots that I would encourage actually checking after you slice it in your slicer to make sure that it has a high probability of printing successfully. So I should have used a brim. That feature probably would have enabled me to print out some of those really small pieces. But overall, I think the rest of it printed out pretty well. And I did, for this upper part here, did go ahead and put supports on it just to see what the difference was. And in particular, to see whether or not the supports, I would be able to break them off without breaking off these really fine and thin prints. And I'm happy to say that I was able to successfully take them off. And it did help with some of these pieces. But again, I think you would or might be able to get away with not using supports for things like this. But that's entirely up to you to experiment or that you know your machine. Also, Joshua is providing two all-in pledges for this campaign, but that is going to be one of the GGGGs for next month, June of 2023. But this is just a preview since he's going to be launching at the end of this month. Wanted to get this video out just so that you all can know that it's coming up. But let's go ahead and go to the computer and I can walk you through the preview page. So here is the preview page for the campaign. Now, there are going to be changes that is going to be made. I know he's working on a video to be able to show all of the files, but I know it's hard to tell. This does look like a 3D render, but this is actually physical buildings that Joshua was able to print out and paint up. And that's going to be the case for most of the drawings or most of the depictions of the models that are here. And he's still finalizing this page as well. So just take this with a grain of salt, because I do know that he's planning on making some changes to these this page. So this is the larger building that I think looks really cool, and here it is printed out here. Really is a large piece, centerpiece, I think, which would look awesome on the table. And again, as I mentioned before, all of these spiky bits works really well with the theme of the drow or the dark elves. I think it looks super cool, would fit in an Underdark setting too. It looks like he painted his walls sort of a reddish or brown color. I like my purple theme. Usually with my drow, I paint them with some kind of purple and black on them. But you can obviously paint it up any color that you want. This is the barracks model, and I do know that he split up all of the pieces so that it could print on your standard Ender 3 plate or the Prusa MK3S, which is what I'm using to print all of these out. And again, one of the things I see here, at least on his prints, all of the spikes and blades have printed out without fail. Whereas, again, for me, I think, see these tiny bits right down here at the bottom, I feel like that might need a brim in order to print successfully, because that point is so small. Otherwise, they look super cool. Oh, this is to talk about how they are print-in-place doors. And I really like those a lot. Number of other artists create workable doors that print in place where you don't have to create a hinge for it. These are some of the stretch goals that he has. Just a number of other models, and here we have some buildings, and this looks super cool too, as right now these are 2D renders. And it sounds like if he hits these stretch goals, he'll be creating these STL files as he releases them. So a ton of different stretch goals. Here we have a really cool ship. And then the pledges. And then here are some add-ons. It looks like these are some STL files that he's created. I don't know if they were previous Kickstarters or if he just made them for purchase, but you can add those on. And I think that's it. Let's look at the pledge levels back up here. We have an early bird. So if you want to follow this campaign, you'll be notified once it launches. You can get $10 off. As a regular, seems like it's $59. Again, I think these prices may change, who knows, but at least this is what's on the preview page. And then you have the early bird merchant pledge, and then the merchant pledge down here, full price at almost $300. So those are going to be a relatively simple campaign in the sense that there aren't a million options, but go ahead and use the link below to be notified. And then once it goes live, I think again at the end of this month of May of 2023, you should be able to navigate through it yourself. So there you have it. Hopefully this is helpful for you. And if you've always been looking for sort of that dark elf or underdark city with buildings, this is, I think, a perfect addition for your terrain set. Again, this is going to be part of the GGGGs for June of 2023, but go ahead and use a link below to go to my Patreon page where you can see all of the gratitude gifts that Bob is going to be choosing for this month. Also stick around because I do have a painting tutorial of how I painted this up. Happy printing, happy gaming. We'll see you next time. So I went ahead and primed this with a dark gray, and then this part I primed just black. And I need to glue this piece on because I did print it separately. I'm grabbing some zinc from Americana. This is a dark gray. And because I primed this black, I want this to be the same color as the rest of the base. That's why I'm putting this on here. And this is definitely a lighter gray color than what I spray painted or spray primed. That's okay, it's close enough. I will actually go ahead and get it into the crevices because I'm going to paint that a lighter color. So I actually want the base to be lighter. I'll probably go in there and put white in the cracks just so that the brighter color will actually show up. Not sure what color I'm going to do. Maybe a fluorescent green, possibly a purple, but something to make this stone look like some kind of magical stone, something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and just color the stone part, this dark gray, before I move on to the next step. Alright, I'm taking some zinc and some slate gray because both of the, one is too dark, one is too light, and mixing these together to get a medium. And then with this, just dry brushing over. And see how by dry brushing I'm not getting paint down into the crevices because I want to maintain the dark gray as a shadow in the crevices of the stonework. And then you also want to go back to this one and also do the same thing, and usually just color it like this. You don't have to cover as much as you did with the base, like that. Alright, so after doing that, just add a little bit more of the slate gray into the mix so that it lightens up. You're never going to go pure slate gray because it's just so too bright, just too bright. And this time you're going to be really sparse with it because it is so light. Just hit a couple of spots. You're not going all the way across, but just some spots that you want to highlight, usually corners, edges, things like that. I don't know if the camera is even picking up the subtle differences that this is making, but this is a final sort of dry brush that you want to put on top of your gray stonework like this. And especially around the stairs, you want to hit the edges of your stairs. That's just going to help highlight all of the details in the stonework. And again, you want to make sure you hit this piece. This is some black. And because I spray painted this gray, I got to make these blades black again. And as you can see here, these spots didn't print very well down here at the bottom. But that's okay because it's at the bottom. Grabbing some purple. This is Purple Rain specifically. You can tell this is going to need 2 coats. Now I'm deciding to do this gold sort of on these raised areas of these blades. And originally I was thinking of making the blades silver, but I actually think I like to keep them black. I think they're going to look cool black, so we'll see after I'm done painting these gold. Grabbing some white. Oh, you know what? Now that I painted these, I see that they are skulls. I thought they were embers. But I am going to go ahead and paint these like they're embers, even though I think they're supposed to be skulls. And then also this pool I need to do white because I'm going to paint it red like it's blood. And if you were to do red on such a dark base coat, it just won't turn out very bright as a red, and that's why. Usually whenever you're painting red or yellow, and particularly yellow is even worse, you have to have a lighter undercolor or else it really won't show up. So that's why it's important to do this base layer. I do plan on painting this red, but it's light enough gray that it shouldn't be that bad. So here's the red. And as you can see on this lighter gray, it does go on pretty well, so we didn't need to put the white as an undercoat over this lighter gray. The red shows up perfectly fine. But definitely if this was black, pure black, it would be very hard to see this red. And you'd have to do multiple coats in order for the red to show up over pure black. I forgot to film it, but I did paint the well with straight up red and left the bones white. Although realistically, if these were in a pool of blood, they would also be red too, but then you would totally not be able to see it, and that's why I left it white. Now that this white is dry, I'm going to just grab some yellow and put this on generously. And what's important here is that you don't have to get all of the white, because flames, when it's super hot, actually will be more on the whitish side. So the most hot area in a flame actually is white. But for the most part, I try to cover up most of it with yellow. But it's just that I'm not afraid to have some sections of burning coals or flames that I'm painting up to remain white. And you can see here that this yellow totally would not be visible if it was on straight black. It would be so hard to be able to see it. And then up here I make sure to get everything, because we're going to put slowly layer orange and then red on top of here. So actually, while the yellow is still wet, I switch over to orange and basically just paint over the yellow like so. But as you can see, there's some of a lot of the yellow still showing through. And then finally I will grab some of the red, and you only need a little bit of this. And again, while it's still wet, put some of the red particularly up towards the top, because the red is actually the cooler part of the flames or these coals. And because the yellow is still wet, it tones down the red a little bit, which is what I want. I don't want the red to be too bright, because it makes it look unrealistic. So that's sort of the effect I'm going for. And then finally, I'm touching up all of the spots where I got paint accidentally onto the black. So here I got some gold, some gray. So I'm just touching up anywhere that needs to remain black, which isn't too many spots. I think for the most part looks good. And then we're done.